In this week's article critique by Team Alpha Tampa, with members Melania Bajo-Gejo, Samuel Kellett, and Pedro Wagner, we will analyze article number 32, Leadership Power Bases, by John French and Bertram Raven. To begin, we will start with the introduction of the article. We like that the introduction begins with the main purpose of the theory and research. It presents the two main questions to be observed. In what determines the behavior of the agent who exerts the power, or also the one that is in control? And what determines the reaction of the recipient of this behavior, or the one that is being controlled? It clearly lays out the variables of P, being the person who will receive the varying types of power, and O, who is the social agent, or the one exerting power. The introduction does a nice job in defining the need for this study and how it relates to social environments. We agree with their statement of importance, as we can reach subordinates in a more effective way through the use of these power bases. For power, influence, and change, we like that the article continues to lay out the parameters of the theory and the terms, such as system meaning life space. We believe that this helps the reader understand the article better, as it becomes cluttered and wordy at certain points. We would prefer, though, that the structure of the article would not work backwards from change to influence to power. Instead, we wish that it would remain with its original subheading of power, influence, and change. We do appreciate that the unconscious or less vocal actions are taken into consideration for social influences, thanks to the clear example of the policeman standing on the street corner and how it affects drivers passing by. We believe that it is thorough in its discussion of positive and negative reactions to the various powers, and the comparison to kinetic energy is a great way to illustrate how it must be used in the proper format. We relate this to new policies or pressures put in place at work to enhance productivity or increase new idea generation, which must be applied to the right groups in the right setting in order to get the desired result. If its implementation is not accurate, then resistance will occur in major ways. The section on dependence of S of A on O begins very strongly by challenging the question of superficial conformity to deeper changes and a dependence on the social agent that cause these behaviors. The conversation following about the retrogression of behavior following the removal of the social agent is very relevant and can be seen on all levels of authority. It is then followed with an example showing the extent of power and dependence, and how it can vary with each individual, strengthening the article's case. We believe that this is one of the strongest sections in the article, as it fully views the situation from multiple sides and does not use absolute language. It is also very important as it applies to all types of leadership bases, as it is important to gauge how individuals will react to each of these forces. Once again, as the section moves into the power bases, the author gives a full rundown of the information to be presented and why it is relevant to today's use. To begin, we will give you a quick definition of what each power is before critiquing in order to help clarify. Reward power is pretty straightforward, and that its basis is on the ability of a superior to reward his subordinate. The subordinate's dependence usually increases with each future promise. The analysis of reward power within the article is pretty straightforward once the reader gets past the mathematical junctions and reads the section for its purpose, which is to explain why rewards can be useful in motivating subordinates. We also enjoy that it shows the consequences of poorly applied rewards to show the negative if it is not properly done. The coercive section identifies the use of punishment in order to achieve desired behaviors or the removal of a benefit or privilege. The coercive section is set almost identically to that of the reward power, and it basically could have been summed up in saying that coercive power is just the opposite of rewards, based on the information given in the article. We do agree with the idea that it is difficult to distinguish between the two in certain situations, such as when a reward or punishment is being removed and how it fits into each of those categories. The example given in this section is not as strong as others and confuses the reader much more than it helps to clarify the information. For the legitimate power base, it is broken down into 3 sections: bases, range, and the ultimate influence that it has over a subordinate. Legitimate power is based on the belief that someone has the formal right to make demands and expect others to be compliant and obedient. We believe that the reading on legitimate power is one of the easier sections to comprehend, as it does not involve as much of the formulation and symbols and begins to speak in plain language. However, we do feel as if the author gets lost in thought when speaking on the positive, neutral, negative trichotomy, which devalues previous information supplied. We thought that the description of the basis for legitimate power was very clear, although we do not always see a strong correlation to the business environment. It is more focused on the social structures. We do think that the legitimizing agent has the most direct relationship to the business world thanks to its example of following the vice president because authority has been passed down from the president. We feel as if this section had focused more on examples like this, it would be much more effective for this course. It continues to strengthen with the range of legitimate power, as one's job description contains its scope of authority. We see that this can be effective for an executive position, as it holds great prominence and respect across the firm, but it cannot always be viewed in the same way as that of a department manager's range of influence. For referent power, this comes from one's perceived attractiveness, worthiness, and right to others' respect, which gives this social agent power. We believe that the section on referent power becomes more of a description of social experiences in high school, as when an outsider looks to gain approval and gratification from the popular kid. The analysis here is clear, but not relevant to this course or as much as the business world. For expert power, this is derived from a person believing that another has superior knowledge or ability in certain areas. The ideas of referent and expert power are very similar in their relationship to leadership in the business setting. It uses the naivety of one individual to gain status or knowledge from the social agent, allowing them to manipulate and control one's thought. We did think that the sleeper effect was an interesting topic, although not completely pertinent. The final analysis of expert power is redundant and leaves the reader with no additional knowledge or insight. For the overall critique, we believe that the text was unnecessarily complicated and wordy through the use of formulas and mathematics. In fact, the authors even go to the point of backtracking and retracting their statements. It is as if they were documenting each thought without fully clarifying until the very end. We believe that there are parts with direct relevance to business leadership as mentioned before, but there are also very large portions of the article which are simply social and psychological in nature. There was more emphasis put on the concept and theory of power bases than the bases themselves. So we suggest that the structure could be more representative of this. And lastly, we believe that the summary contains all the main points of the article and could very well be the article itself, as the authors finally simplify their research and ideas into a more condensed format. And as always, from Team Alpha Tampa, we thank you for your time and hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed this presentation.